One of Guild Wars 2's greatest strengths has to be their class customization. Players have a plethora of tools, weapons, and abilities, traits, and stats, otherwise known as attributes. All of these items in this list offer a playground for players, if they choose to engage with it on a build experimenting level. However, there is one item in this list which I believe to cause more headaches for newer players: stats. In other MMOs, classes are often granted armor that is appropriate for their role. However, given Guild Wars 2's role flexibility, where all classes can fill into any role that they wish, it is up to the player themselves to collect, craft, and choose the appropriate gear for the role they are going after. The adventure to acquire the gear is not uniform between all of the stat types, and some are much more expensive and difficult to attain, due to their expansion exclusivity or overall effort needed to craft them. This creates a bit of a rift for newer players, and even those who are more experienced, who want to seamlessly slip into endgame content, or just simply want to build the class they want to build. Additionally, given the number of stat types in PvE, the sheer amount to choose from can be overwhelming. And to top it all off, there is not a user-friendly place to see all the stat types, nor are they categorized to show which role the stat is often attributed to. To boil it down, I see a few main problems. 1. The lack of gear understanding/acquisition from an early level. 2. A lack of role explanation for the stat types. And 3. The stat combinations themselves and the number of them. Let's tackle the lack of gear understanding first. One way to increase players' understanding and familiarity with the way armor is customized and the different roles in the game would be to increase the frequency of customizable gear one gets while leveling. Gear drops with one of two setups. Firstly, with a stat already on it, and secondly, without this stat on it, where you then need to customize the armor to choose which stat you want. I believe that by granting players more customizable gear early on, with a more limited selection of the stats to choose from, would increase the understanding of the various roles, stats, and how to select the stat, without it being too overwhelming with a deluge of stat combinations. Such customizable gear could be granted upon completing story missions, hitting level milestones, or just simply by purchasing white-grade gear from the common armor and weapon merchants. And as an aside, to then showcase the different grades of gear, i.e. white, blue, green gear, those common merchants could have a side tab to choose from blue and green gear at higher costs. And then, at max level, the gear progression should lead players to dungeons and their vendors. Currently, dungeon gear and weapons are packaged together in a highly confusing and unintuitive setup where they repeat each armor type 3 times with 3 attributes attached. The same could be said for the weapons. This is so damn archaic, it's practically being drilled up to further propel global warming. In more modern days, dungeon armor and weapons are more than deserving of a simplification. 1 armor for each weight, and 1 list of weapons. These pieces of armor and weapons could then be customizable, where players would have the agency to pick whichever stat they wanted for whichever role they are building. Next, let's talk roles in Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2, despite common belief, does use a trinity system, where the roles are categorized as damage, support, and control. I think this is fine, but for more clarity, perhaps it would be useful to adopt the more widely recognized labels of damage, heal, and tank. So, for the sake of this video, let's continue with that. When going to customize gear, a player is met with this seemingly endless scroll of hundreds upon hundreds of stats. Okay, it's not that long, but it sure feels like it. And yeah, sure, there is a search bar, but sometimes that search bar doesn't even work in a logical way that the player would expect. So, taking inspiration from the PvP equipment builder, I thought it'd be a good idea to update the list and break down the stats into groups. These groups would include damage, condition, heal, tank, and other. These categories would also be paired with an icon that would more widely be used to categorize stats and specializations as damage, heal, and tank. Perhaps by scrolling over the icon, it would pop up a brief summary of the role and its overall goal, along with the attribute symbols associated with it. This would all be in an effort to make the stats and roles as clear and understandable as possible from the jump. Now to tackle the stat combinations and the number of them. With so many stat combinations introduced to the game over the years, it is safe to say that many of them have fallen out of favor, been overshadowed, or have inherently been overpowered in the nature of how many roles that single stat contributes to. Taking inspiration from the PvP equipment builder, once again, it might be worthwhile to remove many stats and reconfigure the existing ones to better fit into those roles. To keep the system from feeling overwhelming, I have designed this in such a way to have 5 stats per role. Each role's stats would have 2 main ones that play into their goal. So for power, it would be power and precision, perhaps ferocity. Condition would be condition damage and expertise. Heal would be healing power and concentration. The tank would be toughness and vitality. Having the main stats bolster into these would more strongly specialize a character into the role that they are wanting to fill, while reducing bleeding into other roles. This is an MMO after all, so why not rely on your friends? The other category would be for more fringe stats. Now, for the sake of fun, I want to show off my ideas for the stats themselves. So for power, and on the screen this is of a shoulder piece, so taking that into mind with their overall reduced number of stats. So for power, we have Berserker, main stat being power and then precision and ferocity. Assassin, precision main stat, power and ferocity. Marauder, power, precision, ferocity, and vitality. Harrier, power, precision, ferocity, and concentration. And then Dragon, power, ferocity, precision, and expertise. Moving on to the condition, we have Carrion. I would say this would be more fitting of condition damage main stat, expertise, and vitality. Sinister, condition damage main stat, expertise, and power. Plague Doctor, condition damage, expertise, healing, and concentration. Rabid, condition damage, expertise, precision, and power. And finally, Ritualists, condition damage, expertise, concentration, and vitality. Moving on to heal, we have Magi. Healing, concentration, and vitality. Cleric, heal, concentration, and power. Minstrels, heal, concentration, vitality, and expertise. Apothecary, heal, concentration, condition damage, and expertise. Warden, heal, concentration, power, and precision. Next up, Bruiser, more tanking focused. Knights, toughness, power, precision. Cavalier, toughness, vitality, power. Trailblazer, toughness, vitality, condition damage, expertise. Sentinel, toughness, vitality, power, expertise. And finally, Paladin, toughness, vitality, power, and concentration. Now for the other category. These would include the 2 more fringe stat types, where they are more your secondary stat if you want to bolster these up. First and foremost, I took inspiration from the Bringer stat. This has expertise main stat, precision, and vitality. Now, we don't actually have a stat that replicates this with concentration, so I made one. The Priest stat, concentration, precision, and vitality. And then finally, I have Celestial here, because Celestial doesn't really fit into any of the other categories, and for the sake of making it a bit more cohesive and considering power creep, I might be in the camp where I could see Celestial as a stat be knocked down a peg, reduce it by 1 or 2 coefficients, so that it's not as powerful. But nevertheless, that is my overall mock-up idea for a more updated PvE and, inherently, world versus world stat customization and overall selection for players. That is my current assessment of the gear acquisition process in Guild Wars 2. Overall, it has not been as updated for the early and mid-level experience as it could be, and it has grown to become a bit more intimidating than it should be. Given the idea of roles in Guild Wars 2 and MMOs in general, it would be worthwhile for the game to embrace the Trinity to at least let people start with a familiar goal, and then learn all the intricacies of combat and encounter design. Ultimately, I wanted to make this video because I absolutely adore Guild Wars 2's build customization, but in general, it is a lot to take in, and it can honestly set new players up for failure if they aren't looking or using the appropriate outside resources. So, on average, I tend to agree with maybe a little bit more of a reduced pool of stats and overall better categorization. Thank you all for coming on by to this video. I would love to hear your comments down below in regards to this gearing issue and what I see to be some inconsistencies and old design still lingering to this day. Yeah, comment down below. I'd love to have a discussion about this. This is probably one of my more favorite topics. If you'd like to support the channel and get early access to all these videos and continue to support so I can make more videos, head over to the Patreon. Greatly appreciate it. I also stream on Twitch. I'm now getting better from my sickness, so I will be back there. And if you'd like to purchase Guild Wars 2 or try it for free, I have links down below, courtesy of ArenaNet. Catch me on socials everywhere, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, everyone. Mwah.